This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
The following episode of Charlotte Cooks is brought to you by Central Piedmont Community College and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi there. Welcome to today's edition of Charlotte Cooks. I'm so glad you're here with me. I've had so many of you email about how do you make a good mac and cheese that's nice and gooey and creamy, that doesn't dry out, that doesn't curdle. I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful stovetop mac and cheese today that comes out lovely, creamy, cheesy, just like you always dream a good mac and cheese could be. We're going to talk about some pastas. We're going to talk about the kinds of cheese you can use. We're going to talk about a very simple method and how to turn a mac and cheese into a very simple meal on a busy weeknight when you've got kids at home saying, "Mom, Dad, I want something to eat. I'm hungry." So here we go. We're going to start off with choosing our pasta. We're going to choose an elbow-shaped pasta. We can choose something that is in the artichoke family. We can choose something that's Italian style, which is, we're going to cook this one up today because this is a really lovely pasta. You can also choose the imported Italian kind that are in the simple semolina elbows. You can also choose something that is made with quinoa. Quinoa is one of our super grains that we have going out there today. And it's one of the wonderful alternatives you have to wheat if you don't want to do any wheat and are gluten-free. So one of the things that we want to do is get a big pot of water to a big rolling boil. One of the things I notice people do a lot when they're cooking pasta is they don't use enough water in their pasta sticks and they don't have enough room for it to move around in the pot. It's very important for the pasta to be able to wiggle around in that water while it's cooking so it doesn't stick together. So once I have my pot of water boiling, I'm going to take a good healthy pinch of salt. I'm going to probably put 2 pinches of salt in here. Just because when the pasta cooks, it absorbs the water and then it absorbs the salt that's in the water, and it's going to give it a wonderful salty element, so you don't have to worry about adding salt later, okay? So once this pot is boiling, I'm going to take 1 pound of elbow macaroni and I'm going to drop that into the pot and let that start boiling. I'm going to stir it up very carefully, and this is going to take probably about 7-8 minutes. You only want to cook this until it's al dente, okay? So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about our cheese. The cheese you want to use for macaroni and cheese, typically, a lot of times people think cheddar is the cheese to choose, but cheddar is a dry cheese. And when you melt cheddar, you basically end up with like a little glop and a blob of oil. It doesn't melt very well because it's a very low moisture cheese. So one of the things you have to include when you're choosing your cheese is something that's a very high melty cheese. I really don't want to say American cheese, but it does go well as a melty point. But we also have some other alternatives. We have Munster, which has this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful orange rind on it. You don't have to cut the orange rind off. This stuff melts. Oh, it's so beautiful the way this melts. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've also chosen some Asiago cheese. Asiago cheese is one of those wonderful nutty Italian cheeses that is just so good. It's got a nice melting quality, not as much as your Munster cheese, but it is absolutely delicious. Now, one thing you're going to notice if you use the Asiago, that it's going to break off in lumps and clumps. And we're going to talk about the texture of the cheese in just a second. I also have this fabulous artisan farmhouse cheddar here, which is an amazing cheddar cheese all on its own. And then just for a little bit of interest, I'm going to add a small chunk of blue cheese. Most people would not be able to identify the blue cheese in that, but it's one of those elements that gets in there that's a little on the salty, little on the savory side, as opposed to always being creamy. It gives some nice complexity to the creamy cheese. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take a box grater. Now your box graters typically have several different sizes on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose the largest whole size, okay? Because what we're looking for with our cheese is we want to make sure that we have a nice, soft texture here that's not really big, that's going to be able to melt relatively quickly. One of the things when you're cooking pasta, folks, is stir it. That helps keeping it from sticking together. There's nothing worse than having to rinse your pasta and pull the pieces apart because they all stuck together because you didn't stir it while you were cooking. Putting oil on the top of the pot doesn't do any good at all because the oil floats on the top and the pasta's down below hanging out getting all cooked. And so you want to make sure, just save your oil for something else, okay? Put the oil on the pasta after it's cooked. So we're almost done here. You want to cook it just to al dente. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our cheese and we're going to put it on the large piece of the box grater. Your soft cheese, it's going to melt, but it's going to stick a little bit into your teeth of your grater. And that's okay. That's not a big deal. I'm going to show you what the Asiago does. It grates beautifully. Now here's a trick to using your grater where you leave the skin on your hands and you're just grating the food, okay? When you use this, you want to cup it in your hand and try to lift your fingers up so that you're not pushing your fingers down or curling them around so that you're actually putting your fingers on the grater. You just want to lift your fingers up so it's cradled in your hand and use it that way, okay? And so the texture that we're looking for is this lovely shredded texture. Now here's a little secret here. When you add the shredded cheese to your bowl, the next thing we're going to add is a little bit of cornstarch. And the cornstarch is going to do two things for us. The cornstarch is going to, we only need about a tablespoon of cornstarch. You're going to sprinkle it over the cheese. And like I said, you don't need a whole lot. The reason you use the cornstarch is if you don't have cornstarch, you can use flour. What it's going to do is it's going to give the cheese a little light coating to keep it from clumping together. So it's going to be a little bit more separated, and then it's also going to serve as a little bit of a binder for our liquids that we're going to be adding to it. Now you see in here, I've got some Asiago chunks because my chunk kept breaking while I was grating it, and that's okay, but you want to make sure if you get the big lumps, you get them all broken up, because by the time the eggs are cooked, when you're stirring your pasta around, the cheese needs to be all melted and you don't really want to have a big lump of cheese hanging out in there. Okay, so the thing about this recipe, folks, is as soon as your pasta is done, you're going to have to be ready to rock and roll with the rest of it. Don't run the pasta underwater, don't cool the pasta off, just absolutely put it in the colander, put it in the pot, and then we're going to add our sauce elements. What's our next sauce element? We talked about the cheese. Now we're going to add some liquid. I'm going to take 2 eggs, 2 large eggs. I'm going to crack them. I'm going to put them in the bowl. Next, I'm going to take a can of evaporated milk. 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk is all you need. Not the sweetened condensed milk. Don't make that mistake. We're not making cookies here. We're making macaroni and cheese, which as far as I know is not sweet. So you're going to put the entire can in here. Evaporated milk is a good alternative to heavy cream. Usually it's lower in fat, but still you're going to have some butter in this. Haha, we're doing butter, and we're doing cheese, and we're doing eggs. So you want to whisk this up. Break up your egg yolks until it's nice and smooth. The next thing we're going to add to this, a teaspoon of dry mustard powder. Could you use regular mustard? I would not use a yellow mustard like the kind you put on your hot dogs. I would not use a mustard that had a lot of flavor in it. I would use a plain Dijon mustard, or I would use the dry mustard powder. And once again, you're only going to put about a teaspoon in there. Okay, put that in there. And what does the mustard do? It adds a wonderful characteristic flavor that is like, you can't put your finger on it saying, oh, that's mustard. It's got a nice spice. It's got a little bit of an edge to it. It gives that savory quality a beautiful, beautiful element. The next thing we're going to add in here is a teaspoon or more, if you like it, of hot sauce. Okay? You can use any kind of hot sauce that you want. Just be aware that it does add an element of heat, and we may not want things super hot for our kids. If you don't want it for your kids, you can leave it out altogether. But I think it adds a tremendous dimension of flavor. Okay? Whisk this up until it's all nice and smooth, okay? So now we've got this ready to go. Our pasta should be done. We're going to drain our pasta. Now, here's the thing, folks. When you are ready to drain your pasta, you need to have everything else ready to go because you got to go zip, zap, zoom. It's got to go while it's hot, okay? So I'm going to turn my burner off. I'm going to take this over. And I'm going to call on one of my students that helps me out with the show. Veronica, come on. And I'm going to bring you the pot, and we're going to get stirring this pasta right away. Veronica, this is everybody. Everybody, this is Veronica. Hi.
Hi, guys.
So you're going to have a little bit of pasta left in the pot, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. You kind of like want that anyway. You're going to grab your butter. You have 4 ounces of butter and put it in the hot pot and get it melted. Then you're going to add all of your pasta, okay? Just drop it all in there and start stirring it until that butter is melted. So Veronica's going to stir it until that butter is melted, and what it's going to do is it's going to coat all of that pasta with this butter. And that's number one, going to help keep it separated, keep it from sticking together. The reason you want to do this while the pot's still hot, while the pasta's still hot, is so that it starts that melty process. The next thing we're going to add is the milk and eggs, our mustard and hot sauce. Stir that in. Now, the important part at this point is to cook those eggs, okay? Because remember, those are raw eggs. So we've got those eggs going in here. She's going to keep stirring it. We're going to turn the heat on low. Medium, medium, low. You don't want it to be too high. And then once that has stirred in, we're going to take all of our cheese and we're going to pump all this cheese in there. And this is when you start stirring and stirring and the magic happens, okay? Here we go. So now all we're going to do is Veronica is going to continue to stir this, and right now it's a matter of constantly stirring this until it is all nice and gooey. How do you know when it's all ready to go? It's going to be thick and rich and gooey. It's not going to be runny like soup, okay? If you're thinking it may be ready and it's still runny, it means the eggs aren't cooked yet, okay? Right now I'm going to take a minute and show you how to keep the edge of your knife sharp. The most dangerous thing in the kitchen is a dull knife. And how do we sharpen them at home? In a professional kitchen, we have what we call a triple stone, and we run it on a triple stone. One of the things you don't want to do is take your knife to someone who's just going to run it on a grinding stone that really doesn't know anything about how to sharpen a knife. So most professionals prefer to sharpen their knives themselves. And I'm going to show you how to use a whetstone. This is what I use to sharpen my knives at home. And I prefer a whetstone, and a whetstone needs to be wet. And so when you have your whetstone, you're going to take it and you're going to soak it in a container of water a couple of hours or overnight. If you use it often, you could leave it in the water, but you want to change the water out every now and then. You're going to take it out of the water and you're going to put it onto a towel so it doesn't slip. You're going to notice there's 2 sides to the whetstone. There's a smooth side and a coarse side. And you're going to start with the coarse side. You're going to put this in front of you like this, okay? You're going to take your knife and you're going to put it on the edge of the stone. Now your blade of your knife goes from this end to the tip. It doesn't start in the middle and it doesn't start here. It's all the way at the end, all the way to the tip. And you don't sharpen just the top, and you don't sharpen just the middle, and you don't sharpen just the end. You sharpen the entire blade, okay? So you're going to put this on here, and you're going to start with the end of your knife on this corner, and you're going to swipe it like a windshield wiper. So you use the whole length of the stone. You're tipping it over, and you're doing it on the other side the same way. And this hand is guiding this, but it's also pressing down so that I'm getting an angle on this. And I'm keeping my water handy so I can keep putting water on that edge and keep it going, okay? You just want to do the same number on either side. You don't have to switch back and forth if you don't want to. You can go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. As long as you do the same number on either side. Then you're going to flip it over. Make sure that this side of the stone is still wet, because you can see this side of the stone being small, it's going to absorb and dry out pretty quickly. So keeping the edge of your knife wet, you're going to do this again on this side. This side is going to be a little bit more on the finer part. It's going to really take that edge and make it nice and fine. And just make little X's using the whole length of the stone and the whole length of your blade. Do you see how I'm doing that? I'm flipping it over. This hand is pressing down. This isn't just sitting there, just holding it lightly. You want to push and get some pressure on that knife if it's going back and forth across that stone. And then when you're done with it, you're going to take your thumb and rub it across the edge. You're going to see that it's nice and sharp. Then you're going to take it and put it on your honing steel and give it a couple swipes, and you're done. You're going to do this with your knives quite often because you need to keep them sharp. So remember, there's nothing more dangerous than a dull knife in your kitchen. So I have a quick tip for you. Do you know how to roast garlic? I'm going to show you 2 ways right now on how to roast garlic. One of them, you're going to get 2 products out of them. And that's what I'm going to show you. We're going to choose garlic that's all nice and together, that's nice and firm. You don't want things that are falling apart like this. Okay, so we're going to take the garlic, we're going to cut approximately the top third off. All right, so just a straight, clean shot. So now you've got all of the cloves of garlic inside of this exposed, and that's what you want to do. So you're going to take a little bit of salt and put a little bit of salt on there, not a lot. You can drop this in here too if you want to. When you do the larger pieces of garlic like this, cut them like this, you're going to find larger cloves, you're going to find larger bits. You can just drop those in here too because it all roasts the same and it's beautiful. So we're going to take these, we're going to cut them like this, and we're going to load them up in this pan, just like this. And then we're going to make sure there's salt on everything, and then we're going to cover it with oil. All right, cover it with oil. So that's why you're using a deep pan. So you're going to pour oil over it, make sure you get oil on the insides of the garlic. So now this is what it's going to look like, okay? So right now we're going to take it, we're going to cover it with a piece of tin foil. We're going to put it in the oven. 350 degrees is just fine. About a half an hour, all right? In a half an hour, you're going to pull that out, and the little cloves of garlic are going to be popping up out of the skins, and that's when you know it's going to be done. You're going to take that, you're going to let it cool, you're going to separate those cloves of garlic out, and then you're going to have 2 products. You're going to have wonderful roasted garlic, and the other one you're going to have garlic flavored oil. So you're going to save that oil for salad dressings, for stir fries, for sauteing, whatever it is you use oil for, because it has got a wonderful garlic flavor to it. Now here's another way. If you didn't have oil, didn't want to use oil, take your garlic cloves. Once again, you could cut them. I like cutting them because then it exposes all of the tops of the garlic to the heat, just like this. Take a little bit of salt and close this up inside a tin foil. Put this in the oven about 30 minutes once again, pull it out, and then you'll have roasted garlic. And all you need to do when they're done is just take these little cloves and squeeze them like toothpaste, and they come out, and use them any way you want. 2 ways to make roasted garlic, the dry way and the oil way, whichever one you prefer. Let me tell you about what happens when you reheat macaroni and cheese. You know how it always curdles? Do you know why it curdles? Well, you're about to solve one of the greatest mysteries of the universe. It's because when you put the mac and cheese away in the refrigerator and it's standing in its own little container, what that pasta is doing is it's absorbing liquid. Pasta will absorb liquid. And then when you go to reheat it, there is no more liquid in there for the cheese to have to stay melty. And so you pull the moisture out of your cheese and it makes the cheese curdle. And so one of the best ways to keep your mac and cheese from getting all curdly is to add a little milk or add a little cream to the pot when you're heating it up so that you have some liquid in there, and stir it and stir it and stir it, and that is going to help keep your pasta all nice and creamy. How you doing over here? Oh, it looks wonderful. Keep on stirring. I'm going to finish up this meal. Okay, so you want to turn this mac and cheese into a meal. So there's a couple things you can do. I've got a couple of really nice suggestions. Obviously, if you're a vegan, you wouldn't be eating mac and cheese, but if you're a vegetarian and you do eat cheese and you do eat butter and you do eat some milk products, well then it's totally fine. So what we're going to add is a little bit of steamed broccoli and steamed cauliflower. Think about things that go good with cheese and cheese sauce. Broccoli and cauliflower are one of those. And so we're going to take a little bit of broccoli and cauliflower and we're going to put it in a bowl. These have already been pre-cooked. We're going to let this sit here, and then when the mac and cheese is ready, we're going to put some mac and cheese in here and stir it on up. So we're going to put this over here so it'll be close to the mac and cheese. The next one we're going to add, here's one if you are not so vegetarian, we can add diced ham, and you could just take your favorite ham and dice it up, and some green peas. You can use frozen green peas because they're already pretty well cooked. We're going to put some of those in here. How much do you want to use? Well, it really depends on how much you like and your portion sizes. This makes an immense amount of macaroni and cheese. Your neighbors will love you. I take it around my neighborhood whenever I make it because I don't need to be eating all of that mac and cheese at home. And so my neighbors say, oh, here she comes. She's got a container in her hand and she's got mac and cheese. Yay. So all you need to do is just stir these things up like this. How's it going over here?
I think it's all melted, Chef.
All right, bring it right over here. All right, so thank you very much.
You're done with me?
All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this mac and cheese. And here's something I want to tell you all about. When you're stirring your macaroni up, don't use a metal spoon because a metal spoon has got sharp edges on it and it'll cut your pasta up, okay? Stir it up with a nice rubber spatula so you're treating your pasta with kind, loving, caring, all the stuff that goes into making mac and cheese, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of this to my cauliflower and broccoli, and I'm going to stir it all up, and I'm going to put it in a bowl. Oh, yum, this just looks great. All right, and I'm going to get another rubber spatula because remember, you want to do it gently and tenderly. Stir it up. I'm going to stir it up until everything's all nice and coated. Think of broccoli and cheese sauce, cauliflower and cheese sauce. And when you choose really, really, really nice cheeses, you just can't go wrong with this. All right, so let's put this in a bowl. And we are going to get ready to plate these up. Now, at this point, you can use your metal spoon because your metal spoon is going to help you scoop it up a little bit. Just when you're stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring, you want to be a little careful with the utensils that you're using to stir with because we do want to make sure that we're not tearing our pasta up. We want our pasta to hold its shape, okay? Look at all this. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. All right, Veronica, I'm going to give you this and let you make this pretty. Okay, and I'm going to go on to the next one. Here we have our ham and our peas, and once again, I'm going to add some mac and cheese to this and just stir it in. Look at all this, oh, strings of cheese, yes. Now you guys, you can add goat cheese to this if you wanted, if you liked goat cheese. You could use any kind of cheese. Just make sure that you're using a combination of cheeses that both melt and that have lots of flavor, because that is really what makes the dish absolutely delicious. Once again, we're going to stir it up. Doesn't that look great? I almost want to say this would make a great omelet filling, but that's just going a little bit over the top. I'm going to plate this up as well. And, look at this. This is yummy, yummy, yummy. Lots of drooling going on here. This looks fantastic. Spread this around a little bit. And there you go. So here, we have got one dish of our lovely macaroni and cheese with green peas and ham. We have got our lovely dish of macaroni and cheese with cauliflower and broccoli that has been steamed. And then we're going to take another dish and we're going to just serve it up just plain and simple, just like you would sit down at midnight and have a nice midnight snack. Although this would be a huge midnight snack. You'd probably sleep like Rip Van Winkle. And you'd put a little bit of toasted breadcrumb on top just to give it a little crunch. And you're ready to go. So there you go. Mac and cheese, stovetop mac and cheese. You guys can get this out and on your table for dinner in less than a half an hour. All it takes is just cooking that pasta and mixing everything together, putting the cheese in, and then sitting down, putting your feet up, and enjoying a wonderful, comfortable dinner of macaroni and cheese. If you're doing a holiday dinner, put out macaroni and cheese. Now, the difference between these macaroni and cheeses and the macaroni and cheese that you would make in a pan and bake it in the oven is this is much more creamier. Usually when you're doing it in the oven, it's got to hold together so you cut it out like lasagna. It's a little bit drier, but I really like the creamy, ooey gooiness of this particular mac and cheese. I really appreciate you watching this episode of Charlotte Cooks. I hope you try this recipe. I think you'll really like it. You can get the recipes on our website at pbscharlotte.org. And if you'd like, you can email me at Pamela, Pamela, .roberts, ROBERTS, at cpcc.edu. I'd love to hear from you. And this is where this recipe came from, suggestions and questions. So please email me with what you'd like to see, what you'd like to learn. Really appreciate hearing from you. Thanks for watching this episode of Charlotte Cooks, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
A production of PBS Charlotte.